Hello and welcome back. If you have not reviewed Part 1 of this training, please be sure to go back and review the Attainment Task Training Part 1. If you are just now joining us for Part 2 of Kentucky's Alternate Assessment Program, Alternate Kentucky Summative Assessment Combined Overview Attainment Task Training, I am Krista Mullins with the Office of Assessment and Accountability in the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support. This part of the training will focus primarily on information related to the administration protocol of the attainment tasks. This slide shows our agenda for the Attainment Task, or AT, Training Part 2. We'll look at the administration guide, desired outcomes, attainment tasks, test security, prior to test administration, the resource guide, testing materials, accommodations, test administration, and after administering the test. On this slide, you will find a link to the administration guide. Please open or download the administration guide for today's training. It is also found on the Kentucky Alternate Assessment Resources page. Many quiz questions will come from the administration guide, so it is critical to have access to it. Completing this training should prepare each participant to administer the attainment tasks accurately. Correct administration is crucial to getting accurate information from the assessment. Therefore, it is important to take time to understand the administration procedures fully. The attainment tasks are intended to assess students in the content areas that all students are tested on as part of the general assessment. But not all content areas are required by the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. This is a requirement of IDEIA, which requires students with disabilities to participate in every district or statewide assessment, but allows alternate testing methods for students with significant disabilities. An attainment task, or AT, is a one-on-one assessment that requires the student to answer questions read by the teacher or test administrator. The ATs are in a multiple choice format, with each AT consisting of a set of 5 questions or items, all of which are based on an authentic task. The teacher or test administrator will sit with the student, ask the questions, watch for the student response, and record the student response. Similar to last year, in Window 1 and Window 2, teachers will be asked to administer field test tasks to all students taking the AKSA. This year, there will be field tests for science as well. The purpose of field test items is to grow the test bank, provide release items to support instruction, and ensure students on the AKSA have the same opportunities as students in the general KSA. These field test items may be used in future operational assessments. For each content area that the student is assessed based on their grade level, there will be one field test task administered. There will be 3 forms of the field test for each grade and content level. Test administrators will receive only one form of the field test. In each student record in the SRD, test administrators must select which form they administered prior to entering scores. The form number can be found in the upper right-hand corner of the field test task, as indicated by the red circle on this slide. Please note that if a student moves into a district during a testing window and has started the assessment in another district, the same field test form number must be administered when completing the assessment with the student in the new district. If you need a different field test form number, see your DAC for the correct field test form. For high school, if one teacher is teaching a subject and administering the field test for that subject area, it is important that all test administrators, regardless of the subject taught, administer the same field test form number during the current window. Please pay attention to the field test form numbers and ensure only one field test form number is administered throughout the entire testing window. The attainment tasks are considered secure testing materials. This means that they cannot be used for instruction, shared with anyone not authorized, and must be kept in a secure, double-locked location while not in use. Be sure to log out of the online training system when not administering the assessment so videos and animations are not readily seen or available to others. The alternate assessment materials should be treated like the general education testing materials. All testing materials must be returned to the appropriate district administrator for secure storage. Some content areas may include required assessment materials that need to be accessed in the OTS or materials that are provided for hands-on use during the assessment. All materials will be returned to the DAC. The DAC will destroy all materials except for their district copy and the elementary math counters, which they will retain until the close of Window 2. This year, only DACs will receive USB drives. The DAC will return the USB drive in the prepaid envelope to UK. The content will be available for teachers in the Online Training System, or OTS. It is important that teachers make sure their profile is updated with the grades taught in order to have access to the videos and animations needed for test administration. Teachers will complete both the alternate Kentucky Summative Assessment Overview and AT training modules and pass the online qualification quiz prior to receiving or administering the attainment tasks. Teachers will need to print a copy of the quiz certificate for the DAC, BAC, DOS, or the District Alternate Assessment Administrator to store in a location selected by the district. The AT Resource Guide provides additional information to help clarify testing protocols and facilitate instruction, including adaptations and modifications, specific content items, information about orienting students to materials, a picture glossary of terms for each content area. Once the resource guide is posted, it may be used all year for instructional purposes. Copies of attainment tasks can be made in order to provide to another alternate assessment teacher in the school or to cut pictures apart for administration without damaging the original. If any school-level materials are missing or damaged, this should be communicated immediately to KDE. Additional materials or copies may be used from the district binder provided to each DAC. Each school with students participating in the alternate assessment will receive one attainment task testing binder for the grades represented in the school. Once the online quiz has been completed and prior to the administration, materials may be reviewed. Materials will be shipped for Window 1 the week of October 21st and will be received by October 25th. Window 2 materials will be shipped based on the district's selection of shipping option 1 or 2, and all materials, regardless of shipping option choice, should arrive in districts no later than April 4th. Several attainment tasks contain supplemental materials, which are now called required assessment materials that are necessary for completing the assessment. Here you can see examples of required assessment materials that are found in the required assessment materials envelope for each grade. These materials will be with testing materials sent to the district. It is important to note that animations include closed captioning and non-closed captioning options. Animations and audio files are found on the USB drive provided to DACs and in the Online Training System, or OTS. Districts may request supplemental materials for students who have been identified with a visual impairment on their IEPs. Requests for materials should be submitted by the DAC to KDE no later than September 4th, 2024 for Window 1 and February 10th, 2025 for Window 2. It is very helpful to read through the attainment tasks and all items prior to administration. This will ensure fluency while reading the tasks, which in turn helps with student comprehension. If unsure about a pronunciation, check with someone prior to administration. Some tasks have accompanying supplemental materials such as maps, graphs, or stories. These materials will be listed on the first page of the task and will be located at the end of the task. These items may be removed prior to the start of the task and presented to the student when needed. Some tasks will require the use of an audio or video file. These will be provided on the USB drive provided to DACS and in the Online Training System, or OTS, to be viewed or played under My AT audio and video files. Words in the question that are bolded and underlined should be emphasized to the student. For example, not, most, likely, best, etc. All questions have been provided for student use at the end of the task. These questions can be cut apart, covered, or manipulated as needed. Use of the questions at the end of the task is optional. Read the script signified by quotation marks to the student exactly as written. If the task contains a closed sentence, fill in the blank, the test administrator may read the sentence with each option. It is important to provide the appropriate accommodations. The AT Administration Guide provides a list of acceptable accommodations taken from the accommodation guidelines for students with IEPs that are taking the general assessment. Refer to the Inclusion of Special Populations document located on KDE's website for additional information on allowable accommodations. If the test administrator has questions or concerns about specific accommodations, contact Devin Avery in the Office of Assessment and Accountability. This slide provides a list of possible accommodations used in instruction and how they can be used for the ATs. For example, if the student uses an eye gaze board where pictures or words are placed on a board and the student looks at his or her selected answer for instruction, then it is fine to cut apart the picture choices and put them on the board as long as the same order or sequence is maintained. If a student doesn't use pictures, it is fine to present or read the answer choices without the pictures, unless the picture response options are a necessary component to answering the question. Some students require verbal directions to start, continue, and complete a task. If this is provided during instruction, it is okay to do so during AT administration. This might be something like, look at the choices. Which one is the correct answer? Or point to the answer, etc. Large print copies are acceptable. Remember that the test administrator is always reading the answer choices, so the student doesn't need to be able to read the words. Some students must be oriented to the materials. If this is done during instruction, it is okay to do so during the assessment. For example, the test administrator may take the student's hand and place it on each answer and state, this is the car, this is the wagon, this is the airplane. Then, pull the student's hand back and ask the student to select the answer. Physical support is okay if it is not physically guiding the student to the answer. Acceptable physical support would be something like supporting the student's elbow or forearm so that he or she can move laterally, or supporting the student's head so that he or she can see the eye gaze board. This is another example of an accommodation that is acceptable based on what the student uses for instruction. Some students who use symbols may have symbols with the same meaning. In that case, the symbol can be exchanged. However, if you change one picture, you must change all response options for that question. Pictures should be similar in format, and the correct picture response option should not be stylistically different from the others. For example, the only picture in color, or the only picture that is a photograph. Again, response options must be presented in the same order or sequence as they are presented in the original attainment task. Picture or answer choices may be provided in any format as long as the order of the binder is maintained. For example, up and down, side to side, in corners of page. The sequence of A, B, and C cannot change. Remember that any change to response options must be made to all response options in a question. The tasks must be administered in the same content order that is provided within the binder. For example, a grade 3 student would first complete the reading assessment before moving on to the mathematics assessment on the next day an assessment is given. So, the reading test would be given first as it is the first assessment in the grade 3 binder. Then on the next day a test is administered, it would be mathematics. When starting the AT administration, remember that it is to be administered in a one-on-one setting, although additional adults may be present to assist the student if needed. It is important not to teach any part of the task prior to administration or in between administration sessions. The 5-minute break between each 5-item task is optional and may or may not be taken. However, sometimes students require a break within a 5-item set. If a student requires a break, teachers or test administrators may orient the student to where they were in the process before restarting. Teachers or test administrators should never restart an item set from the beginning. Students may only complete one content area per day. If a situation occurs and a district needs to request a test more than one content area per day, please contact your district assessment coordinator to work out details with KDE. As mentioned earlier, pictures are considered supplemental materials. If the student responds better to words than pictures, you don't have to provide the pictures to the student unless the picture response option is required as part of the question. The attainment task is a multiple choice assessment, and all response options must be presented. The text must be read aloud by the test administrator or by the student. During test administration, you should read the item to the student and also read each answer choice. If needed, orient the student to the response options prior to reading each question. For example, read and/or point to each response option prior to asking the question. Again, as shared previously, it is okay to reread the script or task question and point to each answer choice while rereading it. The test administrator must record the student's first independent response, as it's not the test administrator's role to decide if the student is guessing. Using the answer sheet, the test administrator will enter student responses into the Student Registration Database, or SRD. A response must be recorded before moving on to the next item. If the student fails to respond, the test administrator may select the No Response option. It is okay for the student to change his or her response as long as he or she does so independently. The student has not been cued in any way by the teacher, and the teacher has not moved to the next item. Encouraging the student to work and reinforcing the student for working is acceptable. The student should not be provided feedback on the accuracy of any response. The test administrator can provide multiple opportunities for the student to respond before assigning a no response code. If at any time the test administrator feels the student is not engaged or off task, they may reread an item based on their observation. This is only permitted for students on the alternate assessment. It is important to allow the student to show what he or she knows independently. Here is a reminder of things that are not allowed and could result in an allegation being filed. Prompting correct answers in any way, giving the student another try to get the correct response, or recording scores based on expected responses. Anyone who administers a state assessment, which includes the attainment task administration, must complete the administration code and inclusion of special populations training prior to the assessment administration. If any classified staff or non-school personnel assists with the student during the assessment, they must sign a non-disclosure form, which must be stored in a location selected by the district. When all information has been entered in the Student Registration Database, or SRD, place the student answer sheet in a secure location and give all school-level testing materials to the district or building assessment coordinator, director of special education, or district alternate assessment administrator to be securely destroyed. Don't forget to delete any assessment files placed on the computer and empty the recycling bin. The task administration for Window 1 begins November 12, 2024. The Attainment Task Administration for Window 1 closes on December 18, 2024. The Student Registration Database, or SRD, will open for Window 1 AT and TAR score entry beginning November 12, 2024, and will close for AT Window 1 entry only on December 20, 2024. The task administration for Window 2 begins on April 14, 2025. The Attainment Task Administration for Window 2 closes May 23, 2025. The SRD will open for Window 2 AT score entry beginning April 14, 2025, and will close for AT Window 2 entry and TAR entry on May 30, 2025. As a reminder, students who qualify for taking the AKSA must complete both Window 1 and Window 2, regardless of when they qualify or transfer into a district. If there are issues with SRD or the OTS, please email Daryl Mattingly with UK. For any issues with timelines or task completion, have the DAC, BAC, DOS, or District Alternate Assessment Administrator contact Krista Mullins with the Office of Assessment and Accountability. For questions about accommodations, reach out to Devin Avery in the Office of Assessment and Accountability. You can use the link on this slide to take you to the Attainment Task Quiz. This concludes Part 2 of the Attainment Task Training. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at 502-564-4394 or at krista.mullins@education.ky.gov. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a fantastic day.